My name is Minh. I'm a senior consultant for a company called Avanade. And many of you might have a question: Who is Avanade? Does anyone know Avanade? Just out of curiosity. Okay, so that's quite a good. Maybe because Mika and I told you about it. So Mika and I are actually from the same company, and the the thing that I really like in doing my daily work is actually that the customers that we engage are very big, so they have a big footprint on a global basis. So yeah, all right. So let's start with that. So Avanade, we actually Avanade is a joint venture between Microsoft and Accenture, and that's why most of you might never hear about us because we actually work behind the scenes with Microsoft and Accenture for all our projects. So again, the customers that we engage are very one of only the biggest in Denmark or in a global. So on a global base, we are actually quite many. I think more than 20,000. Someone 30,000. Yes, and to have that close relationship with Microsoft give enables us to actually get the insight of what's actually going on and also the roadmap behind that and get the customer feedback as well for Microsoft. So with that in mind, the project, the agenda we're talking about here is mobility, is the mobility and security. So how can we achieve mobility for the end user, but at the same time also please the IT department and the security department in terms of they are actually pleased with that the data that we are sharing across the network are actually secure. So this is everything about this topic today is how can we make the end users happy and make them mobile, but at the same time please security experts. My previous work before I came to Avanade, I worked at the Danish Ministry of Defense. So I know everything about closing down big firewall, VPN, everything, and it's very difficult for the user to work at home because sometimes it's not even possible. You have to go on spot to actually log in to classify system and so on. So there is a big barricade of that, and that makes the users on a global base very difficult for them to work. So this solution is something that will look at how can we achieve that with Azure mobility and security. So the agenda is actually to go through what is this package all about, and at the end I will show you some demos about how it actually look in practice. So it's not just show some slides and on points. So the agendas for this is like this. So please feel free to ask me questions during this presentation if you have any. So just give you some background. So we're actually living today where everybody has different devices, and you can see the statistics about many of them are actually working with 2 or more devices in a daily basis. So they might have like a tablet, an iOS, a phone, whatever devices, and they want to be able to work with all those devices at the same time, or whenever they want. They do not want to be restricted to only have this is the only device you can use to work with. And they also want to have the ability to combine the personal their life, so they don't have to go with 2 phones and stuff like that, just to be able to work in a daily basis. So the statistics say that we have a user group that actually use more than 2 operating systems at the same time, and we actually admit that they actually use non-approved software in a daily basis. So actually, usually people just use like they have some document and how can we share it quickly? I just send it to my Dropbox, whatever, SkyDrive, whatever, and then send it forth and back. So with that in mind, EMS is actually trying to achieve how can we help the customers achieve this goal. Not the customer, but also the end user achieve this goal, but also at the same time please the IT that the data are actually in a secure way. So the driving change here is that the end users are coming from multiple devices, using multiple apps that access multiple type of data. So at the end, how can IT be pleased with that? So how can we achieve that, management and accessing of different type of data application for the end user and still feel that we are secure? The way that EMS work is that it composes of different services. So EMS is not one solution like a SQL or Windows 10 or whatever. It's a combination of different services that are used in Azure, and that combination within security, identity, device and application management, and access protection. These are the core services that in combination forms what we call EMS. So when we talk about EMS, it's not one product, because many customers and many companies are actually using many of this aspect. They are making use of identity. So with that identity, I'm talking about AD and Azure AD. So identity, how can we identify the user? Maybe they also have some management, but the combination of that in together will form the solution that we just talked about earlier. Let's give you a scenario here. So the end user have a phone in this case. At the top mark, these are will be like corporate applications. How can we ensure that the end users can both use the corporate application on their personal device? And how can we make sure that they don't mix in between that, so that personal and corporate don't mix and get non-compliant, so to say. So the way that these solutions cover is that the identity, this is the core of everything. The identity of your user will be the core value that measures between all your interactions. The next is apply device policies. So your device will have to comply with some policies that will make sure that you have right. It's not rooted. It has the right updates, and so on. These are known as device policies, and then application policies on top of that. What type of application are part of corporate application? What type of application are you allowed to download as part of your corporate application? And last but not least, the right management will ensure to apply content policies. So within application, you're actually looking into that specific file, specific email. Are you actually allowed to copy this content of the email to a non-compliant source like USB, personal email, and so on? So all of that will be applied to your devices, so that they can be ensured that the data is secure, but you can actually work with your single device or devices that you want with the single identity for all your applications. So this is the background. This is everything that EMS can help you achieve. All of that is within this Intune, web management service, and identity protection. The two other areas that I also want to include in this presentation is the advanced threat analysis. Is actually, so how can we actually detect problems within our infrastructure? That how can we ensure that cloud app services also have the same security as Microsoft service, for instance? How can you bring your own application to Azure and still achieve the same protection for that? So these are the two areas that I also want to include in this. So I hope that this gives you some kind of background about what we are going and how we can achieve this. I'm not going to discuss about prices, because this is a very complicated area, and many companies have different prices and discounts. So that will not be covered. So I want to give you the idea about how can we achieve that. So my first question here: does any one of you are using a device with corporate data on? Yes. So is your device managed by your corporate, or is that a personal device? Corporate. So that means that you have been enrolled that device. So have anyone used AMS at the moment? Right. So that's very nice because you actually have a touch of what's going on. And maybe you're not actually aware of that. So I want to give you the idea of what's going on behind the scenes for all of this. This one is, I really like this one because it gives you a very good overview of what happens behind the scenes. So on the left side, it always starts with a user, a device, a location that wants to access some kind of application. So what happens is that those interactions are defined within the policies. So the policies define who can access what type of application, what type of device are allowed to open this application, or from which location are you actually allowed to access. So you can actually exclude different type of locations. You see, I don't want people from Denmark to access this application. Bang. So within the policies, every time a user tries to access that type of information or app from both on-premise but also from application, it will go through a big machine learning. Mika, he discussed that earlier for security, that there is a big machine learning in Azure that actually determines on the real fly that user, who is he, has he the right, and also determine the location, device, and it actually look at your behavior. Is that a normal behavior for you as a user to actually log on from this device on this specific time of day on this location? Is that a normal behavior, or are you trying to access from a location in China at midnight or something? And that everything will be interpreted within that machine learning, and from that you will get a session risk, and based on that raise session risk, there will be a control flow. And that is everything that's set up by policy. So the session risk determines if you are allowed to get that, or you can actually be challenged for multi-factor authentication. So that system is actually unsure whether you are the one you claim to be, but will ask for to challenge you. If you are the one you are, please verify that for multi-factor authentication. It can also force a reset or deny access. So these are the mechanisms that works behind the scene every time you try to access corporate application. So that's quite cool actually. So the big part here is the machine learning and the session risk that works on the fly, whatever you're trying to access your data. So let's go back to the circle. So, well, it's what got surprised. It was more green on my side, but it's okay. So the one that the core important here is the one user with one identity for everywhere. So you're actually familiar with single sign-on. So what does it mean to have a single sign-on? Because today, when I try to access Google, I have a Google account. Facebook, I might have another account. Twitter, I might have another account. But for corporate users, you will only need one single account for all corporate application, web services. You just need one account that will be synchronized and into all the applications that the corporates are working with. So that gives you the freedom of just remember one thing, one account. But the most important here is also the identity, but also the self-service experiences. So it says that about 44% of all healthcare calls are generated by users forgetting password. We all know that. We all know that after a month of vacation, we actually forget the password that we just reset before we went to vacation. How do we get that back in line? So it also helps you as a user to be quick on getting your new password without having to contact service desk and so on. This is also where we do determine the conditional aspects. So the conditional here said, are you the one user you are? So are you coming from the devices? So what location and so on? So these are the conditions that we set up in the policies. So what happens is that if you compare this to existing, or I would say that on-premise infrastructure, whenever you are authenticated to your on-premise via VPN or whatever. You don't actually have a system that always checks up on you once you're inside. You don't have that system. Once you're inside, you are approved. You can do whatever. You have a token that is approved. You can go whatever do. But here, your identity will always be challenged and looked for, even though you are inside. So that's the difference here, because they don't actually trust you, even though you are inside. You actually look for your behavior. Is that a normal behavior for you as a user that try to download 1,000 documents in the middle of the night, even though you are approved? So that is something that will come in and actually help you make it more secure, and keep an eye on you every time you do something, and actually determine to see are you actually doing or the normal work, or is that something unusual behavior regardless. So for instance, if you take that Snowden episode, if that system had this one, he will not be able to do what he did, because that will be notified as an unusual behavior. Somebody tried to achieve or download some document he's not working with, and that will ring some bells, and that will not happen if you are using EMS. And the next object, the next area is the devices. How can we ensure the device are managed in the right way, and also the application? This is where Microsoft have this Windows Intune that manage the devices. I don't want to go too much into detail about this one. It's just that the components that EMS is using up is actually the identity, and there's a component for application management that sets the rules for what type of iOS version must be applied before you can access, and what type of security on the device must be applicable before you can move on. It also gives you the options to separate your users, so multi-identity policy. So if you have an email, and that email you open with Outlook, but this is a corporate Outlook email, that determines what type of action you can actually do for different type of document. So this is where device management is handled. Excuse me. These will be in the demo later on. I will give you real examples of how that actually looks on the user. So just remember, this is the type of restriction that can be set on a devices that you use on your personal basis, but also how you can use on with corporate data. So the third part here is the right info, right person and right device. So how can we secure that the information that we have, the files that we have, are classified correctly, are secure correctly, encrypted correctly? So let's. So the next slide, it will give you a quick indication how it actually works. Just bear with me. So this is more for the infrastructure, for people who actually interested in see how that connects to. So if you just focus on the left side, so Azure Information Protect will give you the options to classify and labeling documents and files for specific purposes. It also gives you the ability to protect that file with policies, encryption, but the one that I really like is monitoring response. So how often are you able to see the files that is actually classified as restricted, and you can actually follow that file. Who is actually opening that file, and from which location? What time are they opening? You can actually determine and look into that to see the files that have been shared with my vendors, my customers. How are they used? And I can actually respond to that. I can revoke that access immediately if I see that this is not working as expected. Again, in demonstration, you see more in detail about how this acts. But I really like that the classification and labeling and it works in both ways. So the corporate can actually determine policies. So whatever document that you're writing, as soon as you have some, policy defined, some labels and something that indicates this is like HR document, it will actually be automatically enforce classification of that. But the users can actually also have the ability to label that. Say, no, this is actually my own personal document. This is not corporate document. But the good part here is that if the users is trying to change the classification of the document, it will be locked for auditing. So we always know somebody has, changed the classification of a different files and so on. And what I really like about this is that if you have decided to classify and protect a certain file, and that file leaves your, for instance, laptop, and somebody has, copied that into a USB and whatever, brings it home and try to open it up, that person will not be able to open because the security and the protection is enabled in the file itself. So you actually, say that if you want to open this specific file, you actually have to authenticate every time. So that user needs to be authenticated to say, are you allowed to open this file? Yes, then it will open. Even though you are offline, you take that file offline, copy that, the security is, stick to that file. So that's the one important thing here. So if you manage to, copy a lot of, classified data and want to go to Wikipedia and you don't have access to actually open it, that would be, invalid for you as a because the security is in the file. It's not the time that you access it. It stays within the file every time, everywhere you go. So that is really, really cool and nice feature that can ensure that only the right people are allowed to open or access the file. Yes, exactly. This is where GDPR really comes in handy because this is where you can classify but also monitor. You ensure that you actually can, prove that you know what a data is. You can know that who has accessed, and everything is built into this information protection. Um, no, the um, yeah. Well, it feels like it's yeah. You said, I think it's the same as the BitLocker as I recall. So it's the same mechanism. So if you're trying to de-encrypt a BitLocker, that would take the same time. I don't have that, no, but it's uh, I, many. Yeah. So they actually, aware that once it's protected, it will take a lot of amount just to try to open this file, and that would not be worth it for anyone to try. So it's the same as BitLocker. If you BitLock something and you forget the password, it's just gone. Yeah, you cannot open it, so you cannot copy paste. Yeah, I will show you how it actually works. Also with copy paste as well. Yes. Now let me show you that in the next example. So that's actually a good idea. So secure collaboration. So how do we ensure that if you as the sender want to send to John, and you actually give him only John are allowed to do that. You have the expiration of 5 days, and you want email notification, and the permission is read only. So he's not allowed to do anything with that besides read only. So when John receives that and he actually tries to send that forward to another user, that user will not be able to open that document. And at the same time, you'll be notified that John is actually doing something that he's not allowed to. He's trying to send something to another users. And with that in mind, you can actually, revoke the action immediately. So you say, no, John, this is not good. I need to revoke that document. So that document will always, the permission that you give him will stay the same. He cannot change that permission unless you give him the permission to change that. Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, if he tries to lower that, and there's a policy that this type of document cannot be lowered, then he cannot be. But if he, even though if there's some document that he's trying to lower that in any case, that will be, he will require him to audit. So he needs to justify why are you doing this, and everybody will, that will be locked. So he has been trying this, and we can ask him, why are you doing this? Everything is locked. He cannot change it without having to the lock in that. I think actually you can do a quite specific that only you are the owner and you can change that, so nobody can change that. So you can be granularly quite a lot. Um, so I hope they give you an overview of how information can be protected uh, for the users. So just to sum up, so the end users have the ability to work from any devices they want, and they don't access the data, and they don't need to go through any VPNs here. So there is no legacy VPN solution. Everything goes directly to cloud because you authenticate with Azure, even though you have a corporate email. uh, you you actually authenticate with your single identifier to Azure. So you don't need to log into any VPN before you can access anything. Everything will be done as you authenticate to Azure and you have permission to access that data. And that data, again, will be protected by the policies that is determined. And you can monitor and respond to the users of that. Um, so what we've seen so far is that we can see that the users actually will be able to work with different types of applications from the same mobile. We can see that the IT department are actually pleased that they can put policies and restrictions on corporate data that exist on your personal data phone, so that they can ensure that corporate stays secure in a corporate way, but your personal space is still there. So they don't restrict you to do anything in your personal life. So they want to separate how can personal and corporate coexist but still achieve the same security for corporate data. Um, so that brings me to the last bullet, which is security, which I really find that to be I find it quite unique for this solution, because so what we talk about, how can we take security for specific applications, document files, how can we bring that to cloud apps as well? How can we bring the same security to your cloud services? So you bring access and control, conditional identity, policy for data sharing, and the new one, detect threats of unusual behavior. How can we bring the same functionality to cloud apps as service, to cloud, all of that? I don't know how many supported cloud apps there is. I think there's more than 30,000 cloud apps that corporates are actually used today. And I'll go into the demo will actually show you how that is achieved. The two areas are actually the enhanced security that builds on top of the Microsoft antivirus application. So that can actually help you detect and threats on the fly, and actually see a holistic and deep dive into what type of breach have been um, executed. Uh, I think is these are the examples for how deep dive it actually can give you the details about. So for instance, an attacker has maliciously modified the Windows kernel state. So we actually can determine into the kernel state that you actually have something that tries to change the kernel mode, change the iExplore into the system. Another example is how a process has injected code into another process by using the process hollowing technique. So it's actually trying to hide the malicious code into a real process. So that's quite deep dive, and also see this is an example of how that you can drill down and see it. So it actually starts with the service MSHTA that executes PowerShell to inject the rec service 42 with malicious code. So in the end, the rec service, which is a normal service, it actually runs with malicious inside of that. So that's very, very enhanced and very deep dive to see the alert. And in the demo, I will show you actually how well it actually works for corporate, because what we need to, everybody is, the key here is that we always need to assume that we have been breached. So nobody can, say that we have built the strongest firewall, whatever. You have to assume they have been breached. So once you have been breached, so what are the actions that needs to be done here? So with that, end the circle. I want to show you how it actually works in practice in a demo here. Yeah, let's go see the. I hope the. Can I see this? Johan, did you? How did you change that to be one screen again? Yeah. 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 Okay. Because really, I choose duplicate, right? Okay. Let me see. Can you see it? The monster? Yeah. That's odd. I actually want to show you this. Right. So I think I got it now. Sorry about that. So let's. Yeah. I think it's running, right? Okay, it's quite. So the first example is actually about identity-driven security. In this example, I can show you how the use is coming from one browser that illustrate the normal behavior and try to access to the corporate portal, and you can see this get access immediately to the other applications. Whereas in the other one, that simulates that you actually from another location. At the same time, you're actually trying to authenticate from Netherlands instead. So what happens that you actually is prompted for a challenge for multi-factor authentication here. Because they said the system can determine this is unusual behavior, and the policy is that if you see any unusual behavior, please ensure that multi-factor is enabled or enforced. The next example is how can data protection become self-protection? This is where we talk about the document. How can it be corporate? How can you share documents, or how can you copy that or save that into non-compliance area? So this is a corporate data that he tried to save that into his personal Dropbox. It's not allowed. It's not possible. So this is policies that be enforced on your device. The other example is that it's actually trying to just copy a part of the text to see how can it just take part of the text outside, and if he tries to send that through his corporate email, he will be able to have the options to paste that. But if he tries again with your personal email, that option does not exist anymore. And you can actually, in the policy say that if you're using your corporate data, you're not allowed to take screenshots either, so to say. So if you want something, you need to take a third-party camera and try to. If you really want, you can achieve that. But the system within the system, you're not allowed to do that. No, that that determines the policy. So if you're allowed to have some policies, application that can be running while you are doing that, so the policy will actually determine. Oh shoot, uh, why can't I pause this one? That's very odd. Yeah, that's actually a video. That's I think I paused it now, right? All right. But yeah, you have once you are enrolled, that is actually have a lot of power to your device that restricts you from doing all that. So they know that you can actually have third-party tools that can record and copy anything. And with that in mind, they'll actually be able to say that we don't allow that to coexist at the same time. So you have to really be, fanciful to actually get the data. But and again, they don't want to have the part of meaning here is not that you don't want to make it hard for the users to work. You want to make it easier for them to give them the mobility, the flexibility, because in the end you can never be sure that they do get leaks because there are so many ways to get that. But they want to guide users, say please be aware that this is not something that you should share because this is called. Yes, exactly. Um, this next example actually shows that you are downloading a SharePoint document, corporate document, and I actually pressed resume, but it doesn't seem like it's resuming. Anyway, but this users tried to copy a part of the text and actually put it on Twitter. And this in this example, is it still running? It's running from in my screen to say that it's actually trying to, but it doesn't seem like it's okay. Now it's okay. But often the system wants to have to give the user the power to classify it because in the end the user know what type of data they're writing because um, yeah, this is something he tried to paste it into Twitter and it actually comes up and say, are you actually aware of this is covered text you are trying to post? I am trying to change to personal, and you're not allowed to do the post. If you change that to personal, that will be locked as well. So everything that you do will be, locked. So you still have the power to say, hey, this is not corporate. This is okay. I can post it, but you need to classify, or you need to not to classify, but you need to state that this is personal and that will be locked. So everything will be auditing to make sure that we know what happens, and you also know that you're doing something that the corporate consider as a violation. In this example, you can see that this is an empty document. It's not safe, so he tries to classify that. Um, so as he chose this, it will pull up the policy and template for how this type of document can look like. In this, so you have the footer and you have some watermark. This is something that has been decided in a template. That's something, and also as you see now, it's a protected document as well. So what this solution actually want? We don't. they don't want to auto-classify or enforce everything, because it will always give a lot of noise, because you can never be certain that if you have this word in this document, then it's that type of classification. That can never do. They really want to give the user, to have the user the knowledge. If you know that what type of document, you are the one who knows best what type of document this is. They can only know, they can only guide you on the way. It seems like this is legal data, because you have some personal data, be it persona number, CPR, whatever. So you can only, the best way is only to guide user doing this way, but in the end, it's the user that must take that decision. They know better what type of uh, classification they're working, what type of document they're working with. So in this example, this is an example of an auto classification, because he's trying to put in some data that corresponds to some card information. And as soon as he do that and he's trying to save, the system actually say it would auto classify as confidential, because it had detected that there's some card numbers, and that has been defined in the policy. But he said no, this is he can always make it personal again. But again, just you need to and that's fine, because that integration with Outlook actually makes sure if you're trying to send that, it would actually say this may appear to contain sensitive information. It's actually trying to guide the users all the way to make sure that are you aware of this is secure information, because if they're not trying to make it hard for the users to go, because in the end we need to have that mobility and flexibility for the end user. This is very cool stuff, because how can we actually track and take actions on a document that's been shared to different people. This is the code blue document. This has been shared to all these. You see how many have viewed, not viewed, and denied. And the timeline indicator, this is the green is indicate that it's been accessed, completed, but the orange has been denied. So so in this case, somebody from Australia is actually trying to access this document. And that is unusual behavior, because they might not have not have any employees in Australia at all. So this is give you an indication of who is actually accessing your document, what time, from where, and so on. And with that information, you can take action and revoke that, or take that into legal and do further. So this is something that you actually you don't have that before, because actually before you just trusted once you're inside, you can do what you want. But now you will be followed. So that document, even though you're just using your device, it will be tracked every time you use that. So your identity will be monitored and follow you for all your actions. So I think that is a really good tool for you to have the overview of where my document, because today if you ask legal or CISO, they don't want to know who has the action. They don't even know what type of document, and is where that is something that's very hard to get an overview of. But with this, once you have it, you can actually have a complete overview of all your documents that is shared or used. So the next example is when I talk about the cloud app security. How can we bring the same mechanism into your cloud apps as well? And in the example, you can see these are the cloud applications that a corporate might implement in the daily user. And the important here is that these number indicates that how secure that application is compared to a list of tracking that. So it can actually guide you to set up your application to ensure that you actually have you been looking into this specific area. I will go to. So as you can see, these numbers within security, it seems like yes, but in compliance and everything, so they're trying to guide you to set up your cloud application in a secure way as you have for your normal applications as well. So again, um, there's a lot of areas that can be configured to enable ensure a secure application support. Um, the same, can be done for intelligent security grabs, so abnormality. So this is your cloud application that you can actually check for unusual behavior as well. So it's not for your document, but also for your cloud application. So how can you look into who is accessing that? And it seems like in this one we have an unusual with a user from Taiwan that is actually from Taiwan on a time that is not correct. So again, it's all about having overview of who is accessing what, and again take actions on that. Because when we work with cloud today, we're going to work with people that are span across the globe. And how can we ensure that we still have the same security that we still feel that we have for on-premise, and bring that up to us that you know what, I still trust that this user has my document and can view that, because I know that he cannot forward that and he will be logged if you do something. That we have the overview of that, and that the same goes for applications. So it's not for our document, but also applications. So the last one is security aspect. So I want to ask you. So if you assume that you have a breach, what will you do? What are the things that you will look for? If you're in a security officer and you say we have a breach, what should we do? Do you have any idea? So what are the steps? Do you know those? What would you do as a security if you are today, like from Maersk or whatever? They have an attack early morning. We have an attack. What should we do? What should we look for? Yeah. So 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 these are the key words that will always important. You start with what is the attack? What type of attack are we talking about? How did it get in? Which channel? And how did it spread? And who did it impact? And the last one, what is this risk for us? What is the impact in terms of users, services, but also for organizational level? These are the core questions that will be asked and must be asked. And this security service will actually give you those questions, answer those questions. I will show you how. Yeah, because if you said the consequence, it will be the same like the impact. So what actually impact will that have consequence? Here is that it will be the same. So in this case, there is detected some malicious. We are into Windows Defender security, so that has detected incident. So this is identified as a NeoBlaze attack, and you will drill down and see, okay, who has it actually impacted on? This is the user's machine. It's actually identified on. There's the option here to see deep analysis summary, which is very interesting for me to see. To drill down, so we know where the attacks come from. We know who's been, identified, have been hurt by this. The next one is you want to see how did it get in. So how did it actually, got into the system? And with this deep dive analysis, we can actually see that the service that it got into is, gonna have a guess. Any guesses here? It is Outlook. So the user have clicked on something and has been saved to the disk, and it has executed some so now we have to identify, okay, how did it get in? The next one is, how did it spread? How did it get further? So usually, what do you think, how did it get further? What is your normal assumption? What do you think it get, to the next users? Yes, yes. So again, this is here, we have this integration from Windows Threat Analyst with your devices, and then with Office 365. So it can actually look into Office 365, see who has actually received this mail. And as you can see, this user that has been least been here, she's been target, but as the system detects that this is malicious, it automatically blocks for the other remaining users. So these remaining have not been had that same code, because the system detects that and notify Office 365, say, please stop this from spreading. And this is very important, because usually when you see something spread, it just spread goes on and on and on. And with this security, it can actually, without you having to do it. So security doesn't have to do anything. It's actually the machine learning, everything that is behind the scene, the big chunk of data analysis, risk analysis, everything, when it detects it, it actually automatically blocks. But so that will give you the the security that you need, because you want to be proactive. You don't want to be we have a breach, we need to do something. It needs to be done instantly, so we are sure that we have that security that you want. So with that summary, so I think we have been around all that I consider as EMS, because EMS for me it's a very big area. It's not one. And this in itself can be a very big security area, in combination with information protection, device management, and how your identity is works. So it's a very, very broad area that is quite hard to get into this 1 hour. But I want to give you an holistic overview of how does it actually works together. How does the machine work behind the scene for you as a user who just access your application that is secure. You don't need to type in password. You can access everything. But that is all behind the scene, and that is also that makes sure that the security officer actually sleeps well, because he knows things will be taken care of. He has the overview, he gets the monitor, and everything is logged. So if you were to say that, I really think that every company should use this, but with everything in Azure and the cloud, it comes with a price. And if you and that is something that I want to take. I don't want to take anything, but from functionality perspective, and from a security perspective, and also from the mobility thing, I really think that EMS is a really, really nice product that I haven't seen from anywhere like this. So if you have this combination of that, you actually have a very strong security for services that in the cloud, because you don't need to have VPN. Everything in the cloud. Users can access whatever they want, and you still feel secure. So I really think this is a good solution. But I know that I think many of you have Office 365 today. I think many companies have parts of that. They have Office 365, they have Azure AD, they have device management, but together they form a bigger security package and mobility for this company. And that is something that many people have really thing that should pay focus on. And I know that EMS has a great attention right now due to all the past history that we've seen about threats and attacks, because they really need to stop this. They don't want this to spread and need to back up and restore everything. They need to be automatically stopped before it has the great impacts. So um, so I think that ends my presentation. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me. So but this is something that I really like to work more with, and hopefully I will see more of that from the company. But it really makes sense for companies that have a big global footprint, because they want to have the mobility and global for all users. But if you are just a local company, that works fine. But the startup price for EMS is heavy. It's heavy to introduce EMS if you're not a big corporate, I would say. Yeah, you can buy it on a regular basis, a device basis. Yes. Yeah, because all of that behind all the policy and process, that is a big process to go through. It's just some, it's not something you go for a company with 100, 200 users. It's something that you need to be, in a bigger corporate that. But yes, of course you can buy on a basis, device basis. Um, yeah, yeah. I think actually it actually makes sense, because once you step up into, for instance, Azure AD Premium, you actually enables a lot of these features, because by design. So once you have enabled Azure Premium, you actually have all of that. You have information protection, you have all of that. So it's a matter of how can we make a business case into that and make that work for the company, because it is a big, startup phase. But once you have it, as you can see, you can actually have a very secure solution. So yes, that would be all from my side, and thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure, actually. Thank you.